Check one, two. Two. Check, check.
Good morning. Councillor Burnside, are you present? Good morning. This is the North York Community Council Chamber. Councillor Burnside, if you're present, can you please turn on your camera? Thank you and good morning.
Good morning, everybody. My name is James Pasternak, the Chair of North York Community Council. We have quorum. Calling the meeting 16 to order. Welcome, everybody. I don't think we need crowd control today, and I thank you very much for coming on your vacations. Although we may be meeting in different locations today, North York Community Council would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, Chippewa, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit and Métis people, and also acknowledge the treaty that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississauga of the Credit. Today's meeting is being held by video conferences, being live streamed online at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. If you're registered to speak in today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name. I will call speakers in the order they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting North York Community Council page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Members, the clerk has provided all agenda materials at toronto.ca/council and on CMP, the clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff are available to members if you need help with your devices. I also want to remind you to please submit and approve all your motions by email. Staff are available at nycc@toronto.ca to help with the motions. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please raise your hand and unmute your mic and indicate the item number and the nature of the interest. I do not see any. Members, this is a special meeting of Community Council, and under Council procedures, no new business is permitted to be introduced at this meeting. The purpose of the special meeting is to consider urgent planning or heritage matters that cannot wait until October meeting of City Council for a decision to be made. There are two items on the agenda. Okay, so we can run through the agenda. 16.1, 6125 Yonge Street. I don't have any deputants on this item. Are there questions for staff? Councillor Cheng.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just would like to understand the parkland dedication for this site and the opportunity that it might present connect to another dedication that is happening just north of this property.
Through you, the chair. Right now, there is a potential, if the applicant is agreeable to do so, to secure an offsite dedication through this development. The offsite dedication would be based on the value of the cash in lieu, which would go towards securing that offsite dedication, if the applicant agrees to do so.
And is there a dedication from another project that is just north of the potential that they might be available for this site?
Through the chair, yes, Councillor. Through the development to the north, 6167 Yonge Street, I believe, an on-site parkland dedication was secured based on the potential of land to be conveyed through this off-site dedication through 6125 Yonge Street. There is potential to expand that.
And then would that not then create a connection towards Center Park?
Yes, it would.
Great. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Cheng. Any other questions for staff? No. I just like some clarity on why we're here. My introductory remarks, which were prepared by, I guess, clerks and legal, saying that the files before us could not wait until October. Could you explain why that is the case? These files have been hanging around for a long time, and why they had to be done today.
Through the chair, the files were deemed urgent by the clerk because they are both files that, if approved, will result in a settlement on a different file. The city has put forward OPA 615. It's a secondary plan for the Steeles-Yonge area, and that hearing is scheduled to commence in October. Accordingly, in order to get these files off the books and allow the settlement to go through, or it's a partial settlement, it was deemed that these files were urgent and that approval of them was in the city's interest, as it would allow us to move forward on the settlement on the other file, on the OPA 615 file.
So as you know, we don't normally do statutory hearings during the summertime because, well, people are away. They're on vacation, they're at cottages, they're camping, they're doing whatever. Now, could holding this meeting today and maybe even preventing people from deputing, could that trigger another appeal?
Through the chair, this meeting has been on the agenda for over a year. Notice has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, as it is with every meeting. And of course, we understand that people can be away in August, but there's no indication that anyone wrote with a concern. People could have submitted letters. There's no sense that there is someone who feels their rights were not permitted to come forward. And in any event, the clerk has done their due diligence and provided notice as required.
So it is true it's been sitting there, but it's really not a regularly scheduled meeting. It's a holder, if one is necessary. And in the recent council meeting, we withdrew all the holders for August of 2025 because that is a recess period, and we normally don't have statutory meetings during a recess period or during summer holidays. I don't think that's really a question. I think it's more of a statement. Anyway, we're here anyway, and we'll deal with these matters. Okay, any other questions for staff? Speakers on the item?
I have a motion. So this is a motion that staff continue to work with the applicant towards securing the parkland dedication. It would provide an important connection to Center Park in an area that is currently looking like many, many large, tall towers without any sufficient parkland or walking paths. So this is a great opportunity for this future village that we're building, concrete village.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chang. Any questions for the mover? No? Okay. Councillor Chang, were those the conclusion of your remarks?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm
Yeah.
brief. I know people have fishing to do off the docks.
Okay, no, all right, so, okay. So Councillor Cheng has moved your motion and the staff report. So all those in favor of the motion? Opposed? That is carried. The item is amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next item is 16.2, 6355 Yonge Street, official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, decision report approval. We do have a speaker on the item. Is Lori Payne here? Hi, Ms. Payne. Are you with the applicant? Oh, okay. Oh, over here? Great, thanks for joining us. You have 5 minutes.
Good morning, members of North York Community Council. I recognize it's August and a special meeting, so I'm primarily here to answer any questions you may have. I'll just make a couple of remarks. My name, as was mentioned, is Lori Payne. I'm the COO for OGDC, who is the applicant for 6355 Yonge Street. First of all, I want to say that we support staff's recommendations as set out in NY 16.2. The proposal before you delivers on a number of city and public policy objectives, In particular, our development supports the major public investment in the Yonge North subway line extension up to Steeles and beyond. It also supports the objectives of the Yonge Street North Secondary Plan, which has been a massive effort on the part of city planning to put a planning framework in place in advance of the subway extension. We did have the opportunity to have a discussion with Councillor Chang in advance of this meeting, and she identified a particular concern that's come up in this neighborhood and perhaps more broadly in North York around the level of visitor parking supplied in current developments. Our proposal does meet with city bylaw requirements in terms of visitor parking and has the support of transportation staff. However, in the interest of working together, and we've had a good relationship working with the community, the staff, and councillor, we'd like to offer an additional 3 parking spaces, reduce our resident parking, and increase our visitor parking to help come together. So with your approval today, we will be able to withdraw our appeal of the Yonge Street North Secondary Plan. And as I said, we've worked collaboratively and constructively with city staff, Councillor Chang, over the last year to arrive at a mutually agreeable resolution that we believe supports a vibrant future for the Yonge Steeles corridor. We would like to thank staff, Councillor Chang, and the community for the time and energy they have invested in this community, and we look forward to being part of its future. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions for the deputant? Councillor Chang.
Thank you, Lori, for your deputation. I just was wondering how many units of housing is there in this settlement?
There are 613 units.
630. So what percentage is the visitor parking of the 600 units?
In the current application, there are 8 visitor parking spaces, which represents a relatively small percentage of the total number of units, and we'll be increasing again by another 3 spaces. That does comply with the city's bylaw that requires 2 spaces plus 0.02 of the overall unit count.
Are you aware that Councillor Carroll and myself have raised concerns about the city's current policy in the suburb areas due to the lack of existing parking infrastructure?
I am aware, and again, that's part of the reason why we've offered to increase the amount of parking available. I will point out that this site is immediately adjacent to the new Steeles subway station that is underway or getting underway. And we've been working with the North Yonge Secondary Plan to encourage other modes of transportation. We're looking at we have car share in the proposal. We have abundant bike parking, and we're really located right on Yonge Street.
So is there parking infrastructure? Because we know that people cannot pick where their relatives live or their friends. So while an owner can say, I am choosing not to be car dependent, I'm not going to buy a parking spot, but can we choose our friends, or are you suggesting that people who buy in your property should only have friends and relatives who live on transit?
I'm suggesting that when we take policy action to reduce parking supply, then people alter their behaviors to respond to that reduced supply, and that's how we encourage people to shift to other modes of transportation.
But might be much harder if your relatives don't live close to major transit, right?
You certainly need to plan for that. And as I say, there are going to be visitor spaces on the site.
10 for 600 units, so 1,200 people, potentially more, up to 3,000 people to share 10 visitor parking spots, and that includes the use that might be used by PSW, by contractors, by at any given time, multiple people might need multiple visitor parking spots. So just, do you think it's reasonable to only pick your friends and relatives who can use major transit to visit you?
I think, as I say, as a planner, and a good planning reflects reducing parking as much as possible. And I will say that we are in compliance with the city's zoning bylaw with respect to visitor parking.
We are currently revisiting because we don't think it's reasonable and sustainable for this community. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chang. I'm going to follow up on those questions a little bit. You're mentioning you're following the bylaw. Are there any restrictions to adding more visitor parking? The bylaw sets a minimum, but I don't recall the bylaw saying you can't add more.
We can add more.
Yeah, under the bylaw. Okay.
Yes.
Now, underground parking, what is the plan there? I'm just kind of hunting for it.
So we will have a total of 105 spaces, including the visitor, of underground parking on 5 levels. So we're providing a significant amount of parking. And again, we're in compliance with the bylaw.
So how many total spaces is that?
105 total, including the visitor. And then, so it'll be 93 resident, visitor, and then 1 car share space.
So there's 93 parking spots for owners, or?
Correct.
And it's
613 units.
613 units. So you are aware of what happens when people don't take a spot and need parking. They park on the local streets, and then they ask for permit parking, which we don't normally grant in North York. Are you aware of that cascading effect?
I am, and I'm aware that there is enforcement of those policies as well.
Okay. All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the deputants, or we can move to questions for staff? Questions for staff? Councillor Chang.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, what is the long-term plan for the Yonge Street North Secondary Plan in terms of parking infrastructure? Will there be street parking on the interior streets at the Yonge and Shepherd area? I'm sorry, Yonge and Steeles.
Through the chair, I mean, the secondary plan itself doesn't regulate on-street parking, so that would be outside of the official plan policies. That would be something that the traffic enforcement and then transportation services would regulate through on-street parking. The secondary plan itself doesn't talk about street parking.
When designing street widths for the secondary plan, what are we thinking, like in terms of how wide that street is, the use of bikes that we're hoping everyone will uptake? What are we trying to accommodate in the street widths that have been mapped out in the secondary plan?
Through the chair, it depends on which site, which road. Some of those streets, the secondary plan talks about cycling network and building out that cycling network. It's not proposed for every street, it partially is dependent on the width of that street. And there are certain streets within the secondary plan area that have minimum dimensions, widths within the official plan.
So has an analysis even been done about the feasibility of including street parking in that area?
As part of the secondary plan process, the city also undertook a transportation master plan, which looked at all the traffic impacts on the proposed intensification levels, and looked at those traffic impacts and whether or not improvements were needed, and recommended a number of improvements that would be secured through the secondary plan at a secondary plan level, and then will be implemented as development comes forward on a site-by-site basis where appropriate.
So whose responsibility in analyzing these transportation studies is the need for parking? Like who would have analyzed the secondary plan and said, "Oh, we might, downtown or for example at Yonge and St. Clair, they have a parkade because they recognize that that area has a lot of commercial interests and they built a parkade there which really serves the local restaurants. But we're trying to build a whole new community with lots of density. And has there been any analysis done of increasing the number of people? We always say we want complete communities where people can live, work, and play. And so we're trying to, foster robust, hopefully non-residential uses, which does require a level of parking capacity. So is that studied at all in the secondary plan process, especially given the current legislation that has very minimal requirements with regard to visitor parking?
So, Councillor, you had a number of questions in there. The first one was kind of who looked at it. The city did hire an outside consultant to undertake the transportation master plan, which was then reviewed internally by a number of divisions, including transportation planning as part of city planning, but also transportation services. As part of the Yonge Street transportation master plan, they did look at parking. I'm not sure to the level that you're asking or suggesting, but it was something that was analyzed as part of that work.
And was there a resulting suggestion, given that currently developers are bringing very few visitor parking spots to the table? Is there some kind of other infrastructure we're going to develop to ensure that we don't end up in this difficulty where people are parking illegally everywhere and we don't have the enforcement capacity to be everywhere all the time?
There's no new infrastructure, Councillor. I don't think we recommended any parking lots. And then, again, as far as on-street parking goes, that's entirely within our abilities to regulate and permit wherever we see fit, as a city, not as a division.
But it doesn't make sense to me that we are trying to secure certain street widths. We ask for certain setbacks from our developers, but we don't have a plan of whether or not we're going to do on-street parking.
Councillor Cheng, that's your last question.
Yeah, wouldn't that be a consideration in mapping out the width of the streets?
Through the chair, I think just kind of going back to what my colleague was saying, I mean, mapping out the street width in large part was intended to see if we could, increase pedestrian movement, cycling movement. And I would concur with one of the earlier comments that a large part of our objective for the city is we're trying to change the behavior of people driving. So the movement to create even more parking is something that I think council may want to revisit, as you had said, with the visitor parking. But I think on a broader scale, if council believes that, in these, in North York and the other districts, that more parking is needed, whether or not it's supplied by applicants or is it supplied more globally by our parking enforcement or parking authority, like those are discussions I think that certainly could happen. I mean, we do have a parking authority that has sites and can explore sites with our Create TO colleagues to create more parking, and that can happen, on its own, independent of applications. But there are also opportunities for partnerships that could happen, when a development site comes forward. And, the parking authority could perhaps work jointly on sites to get additional parking in buildings that the parking authority will run itself. So those are kind of questions and discussions that could happen if that is something that needs to be pursued further.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cheng. Councillor Cole, did you have questions for staff?
Yes, in this project, there's 613 residential units. How many of the units are affordable?
Through the councillor, as of right now, no affordable units are proposed.
None affordable. So could we have, as part of the settlement here, could we have basically proposed a certain percentage of affordable units in here?
Through the chair, Councillor Cole, the province has really limited the city's ability to require any applicant to do affordable housing. That is a very consistent in many different ways, and we are left with very few options. So the short answer is it's very difficult for us to negotiate it, and it was not done on this project.
So there's been no discussions about possibly getting the developer to include maybe 10 affordable units. I mean, we've done that in other projects where we've negotiated with the applicant to at least include a minimum number of affordable units.
So through the chair, I would say that staff did have some preliminary discussions with the applicant about providing some affordable units, and it was something that I think the applicant was willing to take a closer look at. Given the time frame that we had to deal with right now, I think the response was, you know, we can continue to explore it as this application moves forward, and certainly there was an expectation that the councillor may raise the issue about affordable housing as well. So we certainly put it on the table for the applicant to be thinking about.
So should we move a motion there for today to include some affordable units as part of the ongoing discussions that hopefully Councillor Chang could agree to do?
Through the chair, I think if we don't have the time today to do it, perhaps what could happen is before this item reaches council, we could work together on the language. Okay,
so hopefully we can take this offline to basically look at that very, very critical need of affordability in the Yonge Street, Upper Yonge Street corridor there. In the secondary plan for Yonge, I think it's called the Yonge Steel secondary plan, is it?
Yonge North.
Yonge North. Do the secondary plan ever sort of outline the need to incorporate affordable housing in the secondary plan?
Through the chair, councillor, it doesn't specifically talk about affordable housing. It talks about trying to achieve a mixture of unit types to provide a full range of housing, but not specifically affordable units.
Why wouldn't we explore the possibility of including affordability in a plan? Why don't we normally do this? Most secondary plans don't do this. Can we, or why don't we?
Councillor, the secondary plan does not, but the secondary plans are intended to work in conjunction and as part of the city's overall official plan, and the official plan as a whole does contain policies around affordable housing.
So are there any affordable housing principles out of the official plan that might reinforce the need to include affordability in the future applications here, including this one?
So, councillor, affordable housing is something that staff try to achieve. And as earlier stated, we have had conversations with the applicant. The fact with the community benefits and the way it's worded is the applicant has to be open to supplying those units. It's not something that we can force upon the applicant. So we are having those discussions, but we can't require them to provide it.
And then that's the province's refusal, basically, to support the city's request for inclusionary zoning, right? That was turned down by the province, that we can't basically include affordability in all these new developments that are taking place.
So through the chair, Councillor, what I would say is the province hasn't refused the inclusionary zoning. What it's tied to is their approval of our major transit station area policies, and that document still has not been approved by the province. So when that gets approved, then it will kick in the inclusionary zoning around transit stations.
So the province has still refused to, how many years have we had that on the minister's desk that he's refusing to sign about intensification, basic MTSAs, TMMSAs, whatever it is around stations? How long has it been on the minister's desk?
Councillor Cole, I mean, really, I don't think we should drag staff into political debates. I don't
Well,
think
it's not a
I don't think
political
it's healthy.
debate, Mr.
If you
Chair.
want to make
It's,
those comments in
affordable
your
housing.
remarks, it's in order. But
Point of order,
I mean,
6 minutes.
you know what? I think I started his clock late, but you have a point. Councillor Cole, I think you're out of time, but if you wanted to add those remarks about what's sitting on the minister's desk and the stacks of paper, and I don't know, I think they're in order. If you
I'm
put them in
talking
your...
about building affordable housing.
I
in the
understand
city.
fully, and we have a motion
We've
ready
got
to go.
People on the streets.
Yes, no, I have questions for staff, so I'm gonna follow up where you left off because I think it's an important point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. So following up with Councillor Cole, I know staff is very aware that we just adopted the Downsview Secondary Plan. And in that plan, we had a number of provisions for affordable housing. Yet staff seem to be saying we can't ask for affordable housing under a secondary plan or even under the current planning regime. And I don't quite get that, because if you don't ask, you don't get. And we might not be able to tighten the screws, but if landowners want their approvals quickly, then a little bit of flexibility usually goes a long way. Can they comment on why the Yonge North secondary plan didn't have any provisions for affordable housing yet? The update Downsview does, particularly in William Baker and in Allen East.
Through the chair, probably a combination of several reasons, Councillor. First would be there was already an existing Downsview secondary plan that was in place that had affordable housing policies that were in large part kind of carried over into the new secondary plan. The second reason I would say is, Downsview is very unique. We've got two specific landowners in that area. One is largely the federal government, and the other one is Northcrest. So in cooperation with them to build out that entire secondary plan area, they obviously were willing to provide affordable housing. But I would stress that because it's two large landowners and there was a lot of cooperation moving forward with the long-term development of that community. That's how we achieve those policies. A little bit different here in terms of Yonge North because although it's a large area, it's obviously many different landowners, and I would also say that our planning regime has changed quite significantly as well, right? With the community benefits charge requiring that we can only ask for the 4%. So it could be done if there's cooperation, certainly, but our legislative framework right now is the 4% that we have to work with.
The community benefits charge, the 4%, is that go into a citywide pool, or is that split between local and citywide, or is that all local?
Through the chair, it is a citywide pool. Okay,
so out of sort of process, we really don't ask property owners anymore to add 5% affordable, 10% affordable. And
So I think through the chair, we certainly can ask, and there have been examples across the city where applicants have been willing to provide more, and that's something that we may write into the official plan amendment that we're approving. There are examples of that across the city, even outside of Downsview.
okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions for staff? And we do have an affordable housing motion ready, but let's go to speakers. Speakers on the item? Councillor Cole, I know that you had some passionate remarks about the process. So Councillor Cole, Councillor Cheng.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
so
Councillor
who's up
Cole, go
first?
ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I think Councillor Chang's this attempts to get even some visitor parking in some way shows how absurd this whole process is becoming, and that we're trying to get 3 extra visitor parking spots to deal with the reality of people living in the corridor here, and never mind trying to basically ensure that this is a complete community, a sustainable community, and so we're approving here again. It looks like 613 residential units, probably 1,000 people plus. And again, the question is, can working people or working families live in Yonge North? I mean, it looks like if this trend continues, they can't because these are going to be very expensive, small units, and there's no place for working people. And so therefore, I think we've got to look at not only this development, but everything that's happening there on Yonge Street, where Councillor Chang has been desperately trying to get community infrastructure for all these residents to basically meet, get services, have social interactions, health supports. These are very important parts of building a community. So we just can't build, 50-story buildings. And then in context, this is just not one building. I know Councillor Chang, I don't know how many she has. Every council meeting North York here, we have approvals for 3 or 4 of these. And we can't have sort of a comprehensive approach where we can look at least, as in Downsview, which is a bit easier because there's different ownership. Here is totally private ownership, but we somehow have to get some forces at play here to include real infrastructure on Yonge Street going forward, given the number of people. And this is our only chance to do it. If we don't do it, this is, concrete city forever. I mean, I thought you named the Center Park, maybe name it Concrete Park. I mean, this is what is happening to our city. And I know it's not fashionable to talk about affordable housing because there's housing, but you can't say the word affordable anymore because the province has not deemed it essential. And that's why they're sitting on all these MTSAs, which are around transit stations, and they haven't signed off on them. They're all over the city where our planning department is saying, yes, this is a designated major transit station study area, yet they're all sitting on the minister's desk for about 2 years, and he's refusing to sign off on it. And yet we are approving all this density around subway stations And the minister has not signed off on the density. Yet we approve these things because there is this plan that one day will be accepted by the province. So it's just madness that's taking place in terms of planning here. And I don't blame our staff who is caught, with 10 different pieces of legislation, which is impossible to keep up with. And you can imagine the public trying to keep up with these things. Ask the person on the street what an MTSA is. Does the public know that we can't we're not allowed to build affordable housing? Our plan can't basically dictate affordable housing minimums even. We have to beg the developers, and we get 5, 10 units, which is ludicrous. And, then the developers also have a problem with the rising cost of materials, labor, land, etc. So anyways, whatever we can do to support Councillor Chang and her effort to essentially humanize Yonge Street to make it somewhat acceptable for working people to live on Yonge Street. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Chang?
Thank you, Chair. I have a motion, and I really want to thank Deputy Mayor Cole's many comments. They are important comments because they're about the livability of a city. So I am asking our city executive director of development review and to work with the general manager of transportation services to work towards increasing the visitor parking from 8 to 15 to 20. I think adding 3 spots is really nominal and not going to, even 20 is not going to make a huge dent. But I think that given the density of this building, 50 plus stories, that we should be working towards a more reasonable number, which is not capped by city rules, as was highlighted by our chair. So I'm hoping that our developer friends will help me work towards a more livable community. And I think that having more visitor parking will help. And so it just means decreasing the number of owner parking. So owners can choose whether they want a parking spot or they want to have a transit-oriented lifestyle. But owners cannot choose where their relatives live, where their friends live, and how their friends might visit them. So this is just seeking to make a small advancement to improve the sustainability and impact on the surrounding community. The second part of the motion is to work with the applicant on affordable housing. And Deputy Mayor Cole is right. We should be building more affordable housing. And when we look across our huge city with our growing skyline, and to know how little affordable housing there is and how we really stopped building it for the last 20 years, it seems to me that our city has been built with greed as our compass. So we are making money for people who, have the resources to invest in real estate, but the commoditization of real estate and the lack of policies that ensure that we have the full range of housing available means that we're living in a city that is becoming livable. And really, if we look at the issues like homelessness, encampments that are growing across our city, this is the result of the lack of affordable housing. So if people want to live in a livable city, if our developer friends want to build a complete city where the quality of life is maintained for everyone, then we all have to work together. And building affordable housing is a way to pitch in towards building a better city together. So both of these motions are tied to working with the developer in advance of our special city council meeting on September 5th. And I hope that our applicant will work with our city divisions to advance both of these important pieces that will help improve our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cheng. Councillor Burnside, did you want to speak before I do?
No, I'm okay. I won't be speaking.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Burnside. So, no, thank you, Councillor Cole and Councillor Cheng. You've made some very valid points, and I think landowners and developers have to understand what's good for business. And it's not just putting up a tower, but what surrounds it. Extended or expanded visitor parking is good for business. Parkland, on-site parkland dedication is good for business. Affordable housing within a unit is good for business. Those affordable housing units often turn into buyers down the road. And of course, we have an affordable ownership program as well, as long as it's well funded. Developers have to realize that they cannot work in the short term. They have to work in the long term to understand that their long-term reputation on building complete communities is what people look at when they buy, when they invest, and when they get approvals at community council and at council. So I realize there's sacrifice, maybe a little bit of a sacrifice in the long term on the bottom line to do these things, but in the long run, their reputation, their ability to continue building across the city is enhanced. One of the reasons we have a housing crisis, an affordability crisis in the city is between 2018 and 2022, when the downtown development was on fire and we were building 50, 60-story towers in many of the areas down and around Skydome and the CN Tower, we were just negotiating cash-based Section 37 agreements with almost no affordable housing coming in on those applications. And we missed an opportunity to develop thousands of affordable housing units within there. And when I say affordable, I don't mean social housing, I mean below market, so that we can keep the next generation of professionals and workers in our city. And people are leaving the city, young people. 3 of my 4 kids have left the city. And they left for different reasons other than affordability, but they're not coming back because of affordability issues. So I think, I don't know what the likelihood of negotiating these complicated arrangements between now and September 5th are, but we certainly must try, and I urge the developer to be the good corporate citizen that it can be, and to make way for affordable housing options on a contract basis. We usually set terms for those. We defer DCs, we defer property taxes, and we give an opportunity for those who can't afford to actually get housing. And it takes pressure off our housing wait lists, off our social housing, and in some cases it gives dignified living to seniors as well. So with that, I will support both the motions on the visitor parking. You're going to have a lot of lonely people in that building with 7 parking spots for visitors. They're going to be cramming the streets, which cannot handle that kind of volume of dozens of cars on the streets trying to visit friends and family in your building. So this is an issue. These are all issues when people think about buying, and we don't have easy answers for them. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have the motion, and we can put the motion on the screen. There we go. The first part is about visitor parking, and the other one is about affordable housing. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. The item is amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Well, that concludes our 2 items for today, and I understand we do not move bills for today's meeting. So in that, I conclude today's proceedings. I thank you very much, city staff, clerk staff, our technical crew at the back here, members of the public, and of course, councillors for calling in on their vacation. So all the best for the rest of the summer, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy fishing.